No other rope course experience comes close to delivering what Camp Discovery does. And just as a show of hands, any of you who were over at Shanghai that went to Camp Discovery? Oh, yes. See, you've got a lot of fans out there already. Well done. Best in class, hands on, participatory entertainment, a variety of experiences that cater to guests of all ages and appetites for adventure. And 20 plus minutes of over the top rope course entertainment. It's just awesome. Please welcome from Walt Disney Imagineering, Creative Director Dustin Schofield and Principal Ride Engineer Kelly Johnson. Woo!
Okay, great. We're here to talk Camp Discovery, where we get to join the League of Adventurers on a perilous mountain climbing expedition across the uncharted terrain of Adventure Isle. So, we knew we wanted to do a ropes course. There were a lot of things that we liked about it, but we had to ask ourselves, if we're going to put this into a Disney theme park, what does that mean? So we went to look at our past a little bit, and the Walt Disney Company has a long history of taking industry standard attractions that we all know and love, and kind of putting them in a story-driven, aspirational context. So dating all the way back to Walt Disney as an example, while he did build the first tubular steel roller coaster at Disneyland, it wasn't just a tubular steel roller coaster. It was a wild bobsled ride down the icy slopes of Matterhorn Mountain. And that continued on. We did more roller coasters. Next was in the 70s, we did Space Mountain, which was a wild rocket ride through outer space. And even today, most recently, we opened a runaway minecart ride in Hong Kong Disneyland. So we said, what would sort of the aspirational equivalent of that be for a ropes course? So we looked at some other aspirational experiences in our park. We've delivered a river rafting experience on Grizzly River Run. We've allowed guests to go hang gliding on Soarin' Over California. We've gone on a Jeep safari through Africa, and we've even taken guests to Mars. So we said, what if we could take guests on this sort of really fun, over-the-top, aspirational mountain climbing expedition experience? Which is how we got to Camp Discovery. Up in the upper left-hand corner here, we have our fun map. The League of Adventurers, which is our 1930s intrepid League of Adventurers that are here at Adventure Isle, have basically set up 3 different expeditions that we can choose to join. And these aren't just any group of adventurers. These guys have traveled all around the world on their ship, the Unstoppable, which just so happened to have been swept up in a storm one night and crash landed here at Adventure Isle, where they met this indigenous culture, the Arbori, and established 3 mountain climbing expeditions and a river rafting expedition to explore the island. And these guys have been on expeditions all around the world. They've been on a Jeep expedition to the Lost River Delta. They've traveled to the Great Pyramids via camel. They've gone on a submarine voyage down to Atlantis. They've even were the first to the South Pole. They've been hot air ballooning. They've been in their diving bell down below into the East China Sea. They've even been on a mountain climbing expedition up Mount Everest in search of the Yeti. This is the entrance to our attraction, where the League of Adventurers have basically hoisted up the sign that's the entrance to their camp. And we staged it just right, so the mountain's sort of your weenie to pull you up the path and into the attraction. And this photo here on the right is sort of the grand reveal you get once you get up to the main circulation hub for the attraction. And it's really great. There's so much topography, and these trails wrap all through the mountain. You can see people out exploring the landscape at all different levels. Eventually, you work your way up to the base camp, where these guys, they basically live, sleep, play, work. And it's also the queue area for the mountain climbing expeditions. Very lavish queue, lots of props, lots of show. Also, where you see all of the photos I just showed you are part of the story setup that you see as you queue up to join the expedition. We even have themed operational graphics that show our explorers suiting up to go on an adventure. One of the things we're really proud of, and we thought was a really great opportunity we didn't want to miss out on, it's very rare that we get to put our guests into costume. So here we have to put every guest in a harness. So we got we made League of Adventurers patches that went on the back of every single one of the harnesses. So once you put those on, you're an everyday member of the League of Adventurers, ready to go out on an expedition. We've got patent drawings we've got their patent drawings and awards and accolades and newspapers that talk all about the different ways that they've used this fixed rope traverse system to safely traverse different landscapes on their expeditions. Eventually you get to, we have a fun map of each of the 3 expeditions, so you can kind of start to learn a little bit about what you might see depending on which expedition you choose to join. When we got into designing these, we really wanted to look at how best to design the overall expedition. So what you see on the upper right-hand corner, sort of an experience diagram. We knew we wanted to start guests out low on easier bridges and crossings, and then slowly work them up higher and build up everyone's confidence until basically the experience culminates in a tightrope walk 40 feet above the ground. On top of that, we also knew what would have never separated the family. So even though we had 3 expeditions, we didn't want to make them all individually differ in difficulty. So what we did was, on each of the expedition, there's basically 13 sets of bridges, and in each set of bridges, there's 3 lanes. So 3 bridges that all have varying levels of difficulty: advanced, intermediate, and novice. So depending on the skill level of your individual family members, you can sort of self-select which one to join. And they all feel comparable and similar, so no one ever feels like they're selecting a less exciting bridge to cross over. And then also in between each set of bridges, there's a set of intersecting rails, so guests can switch between bridges if they start to feel a little more brave, or they start to feel a little more reserved. So take you through some of the highlights of our different expeditions. This one is the Hidden Falls Chamber Trek, which takes us out in front of the tallest man-made waterfall in the world, and then eventually takes us back to, which is probably the hero piece of our attraction here, which is this waterfall traversing canyon, where you basically you traverse opposing ledges through this canyon that drops with a waterfall that drops about 40 feet down into this canyon. So big thundering waterfall. You're on a 1-foot ledge, no handrails, all open, and you just hold onto the rockwork to get through. That actually leads into, we have a crystal cavern that's shrouded behind that main waterfall for the overall land. And then we also have, there's this really great bridge that basically looks like the indigenous culture of Adventure Isle built it, but it's been there for hundreds of years, and is right next to a waterfall which has over time rotted out the planks and snapped the cables, and the whole thing's overgrown with moss, and you walk on what's left of it. And a really fun little anecdotal thing, just to show that sometimes the simplest approach is the best. In the middle photo up here, that is a model I made to help field art direct this bridge, but we had to have it that day, and I found out about it in the morning. So it's made up of string hot glue and coffee stirrers from the Starbucks downstairs. It worked out very well, by the way. Our second expedition is the Echo Cavern Exploration. We go hiking up Whitewater River Gorge, and eventually wind up at this really cool stalactite cavern with sort of a bottomless pit gag down below you, where you can go over a bridge in the middle of the cavern, or you can traverse a rockwork ledge on the side. We also have these fun little peekaboo moments for the area development path to look in and take photos of friends or family members traversing the ledges. And then eventually you work your way back up over the river gorge, but now you're 40 feet in the air. And you also get to traverse in this middle photo. That rockwork ledge is actually the ledge you walk on, and it goes back behind this big thundering waterfall that feeds the river gorge. Our third expedition is the House of the Ancients expedition, which takes us out to an active archaeological dig site that's just past the base camp. It's got another one of the bridges that looks like it was built by the indigenous people of Adventure Isle, of course falling apart and covered with moss and very perilous. And then sort of the hero piece here is you get to this central ruin, and you can traverse either on the outer ledge or you can traverse on the inner ledge. And the really cool thing is below all of this is a whole kids' play area. So this picture on the right-hand side, there's actually an archaeological dig down below that. So you can see kids digging for artifacts below, and they can look up and see people traversing the ledges above. So really, really fun integration. We have this other fun gag where you can walk up on this big hoist where the League of Adventurers are hoisting up an artifact, and you can hold up You can hold onto the ropes and pose for a photo. And then final component that we have down below that whole excavation site, or the whole expedition, we have the excavation site play area where we've got slides, we've got tunnels, you can dig for artifacts, and you can even pose for a fun few photo ops. And one final little thing to note about this attraction, it's kind of this big spaghetti bowl layout. So even if you're a guest that's too timid to do the ropes course in the first place, there's a whole set of walking trails that are intertwined between all of the different ropes course bridges that has about a 6-meter change in elevation. So even if you're not going to do it, you can literally follow along with your kids or fellow family members or friends through their entire journey from when they leave the base camp to when they return. So every single bridge is perfectly staged for really unique photo ops.
Okay, so now you understand the story that we are trying to create. How do we actually build this thing? So we started off with a creative concept. That's the top left. And that's what we get from Dustin and his team. And we take that to the next drawing, which is more of an informed drawing concept. And that's where we're adding in the show, the theming, some of the paint look of what that's going to look like. And then we go to the next one. The next one is really where the engineering happens. So we have to actually design the components. We have to figure out the factors of safety. We actually have to select the materials. We have to figure out how it's going to actually be put together. So that's the detail fabrication level drawing that we have to produce. And then the bottom is the final product. So we go from the top left concept to the final product. The next slide is a different type of bridge. We have different type of bridges on this experience. So you can see the top left again is the creative concept. We add in the informed concept to add more of the theme and the show look. And then I've added in a slide called the BIM coordination. So the BIM is a 3-dimensional tool that we use for all different disciplines to put their work together. And we can check for interfaces. We can check for clashes. The concrete and the structural engineer and the right engineer can all work on the same platform. And we definitely use this to our advantage. And we found a lot of problems early in the design before we went to the field. And then next we go to, again, the fabrication level detail drawing. So I want to point out that this level detail drawing was really required for this project for a couple of reasons. One is the design was not going to be done by the same company that fabricated it. So we had to get a detailed drawing package, a complete drawing package, to send out to a different company for fabrication. And also the end park, Shanghai Disney Park, wanted that level detail. And then I also have a picture here of first article. So the first article was really critical. For a lot of these bridges we have never built before. And the reason for that is a few things. One is it gives the creative and the operations team the opportunity to climb and jump on the rope, the bridge, make sure it's fun, make sure they understand how it's going to work. It gives the maintenance team an opportunity to figure out how they're going to maintain it, how they're going to access things, how they're going to inspect it. It gives the opportunity for the installer to look at it and how they're going to assemble it and how they're going to put things together. So building first article, prototypes, really, really critical, and we use that really to our advantage on this project. As you can see, this individual is having fun. And then we go to the field. And this, of course, is the final product. This is where we add all the paint, all the final show, and it looks beautiful in the field. So those at a high level, that's, go ahead. Oh, okay. So at a high level, that's how we went through the design. So some of the lessons learned, I could probably give you 100, but I've highlighted 3 here. The lessons learned that we can take away and we can share with you if you're looking to do a ropes course. The first one is to treat the ropes course with as much attention as you do with any attraction. So if you're considering a roller coaster and a water ride and a ropes course, don't say it's just a ropes course. It's not really that difficult, and blow it off. You can see the stats that we show here. This was a big attraction. This was complicated. It had some unique technical challenges. It was very heavily themed. It had a lot of different disciplines working together. The structural engineers and the ride and the area development all had to work together. So this is not something to just blow off. The second lesson learned that I'll highlight is be clear on the requirements. So this is really a requirement for any project, but it's easy to forget this. And the first one is, what are the engineering and industry-related standards that you have to meet? Don't get halfway down the design and then somebody comes and say, oh, by the way, you need to meet this standard, because then you may be in trouble. So really understand what the requirements are up front, get buy-in and agreement. And a lot of those questions I put down there really kind of drive the design. For example, the first one I have from operations. From an operations standpoint, are they going to enforce one guest on the bridge by themselves, or are they going to allow multiple guests? That's very important for us in the engineering, right? Am I going to design for one 200-pound guest, or do I have to account for 2, 3, 4, 5 guests all bunched up together? So our operations partner said, we are not going to enforce the one guest. We are actually going to encourage multiple guests, because we're going to allow this walking trail that Dustin mentioned underneath so they can take a picture of their friends and family up above. Okay, so in the engineering, we have to understand that. We have to translate that into how to design it. And that drove us to make it big, heavy, strong bridges in some cases. Okay, the third lesson learned I'll highlight is to establish an excellent relationship with suppliers and vendors. You know, a project of this size, we obviously worked with a great number of suppliers. And it's really important to get in and get to know them well at the beginning. And it's a cliche, but I put down there that their success is your success. And the reason I say that is it's very easy to blame a supplier or a vendor if they didn't do something right. But at the end of the day, really, it's Disney that is, you know, it's Disney's name on the park and the product. And the guests will not know who did what and how the scope of work was divvied up and how the contract was written. They will know that it's a Disney product, and they will know that to expect a high level of safety and show quality. So that you have to sometimes help them to get to that point. The other two I pointed out here is to visit the factory. So if you're contracting to build a ropes course, go to the office, go to the factory as often as possible. If you don't have in-house staff, there's many third-party inspectors. We use that really to our advantage. And the company that built a lot of these was based in China. So we use a third-party inspector to really help us there. And the last point there is, again, to reinforce, make sure all the suppliers and their sub-suppliers really understand the expectations, both technical and show quality, so they can help deliver that product. So after years and years of design, development, fabrication, installation, thousands of hours of hard work, we end up with this final product. So for that, we'll open up for questions.
Hi, Kevin from Rethink. So with an attraction like that, I know, like Kelly was talking about, there may be some unpredictability in the capacity. was there ever did you ever have to like fight to keep this thing because it may have had a lower capacity than most of the other attractions in the park?
We were actually expecting that question. So
Oh, good. I asked the right one.
So when we look at it, we don't look at it just in terms of the actual the expeditions and the ropes course piece of it. We look at it holistically. So we call those the challenge trails, but the overall attraction is Camp Discovery, which consists of the ropes course, the walking trail, and the whole play area component that's down below. That's down below the third expedition. And we knew that a lot of people would self-select out and would prefer to take pictures of their friends or their family from down below. Photo taking is huge in China, so that went into the way we evaluated the numbers for this. So overall, the capacity of the attraction is pretty great. I will say one of the things that we did learn though is the capacity we get on this is actually much better than we originally anticipated. So without saying what our target is, what I can tell you is we got our original target with just 2 out of the 3, running just 2 out of 3 of the 3 expeditions. So really, really successful.
So I'll add to it. So obviously throughput is one metric that we look at. We also look at the guest satisfaction. And when we were working on this project, we would joke that this is going to be the hidden success project, because there's obviously bigger projects that get a lot more attention. They got more attention. But the feedback that we got and still get from the park is that this is tremendously popular, really, really satisfying to the guest, because it's really unique, right? It's really not something that they have in China, so the guests really like it.
Yeah, and I think one of the big things too is we knew we did our job right when we saw adults up there that were that you could see everyone's inner child coming out. Everyone was acting like a kid running around up on the expedition, so really, really fun to watch.
Did you find that the people are going faster or slower than you originally were estimating? I mean, are you finding them spending time in the area or moving through?
I would say that would depend on the part of the attraction. I think overall faster than we expected. Like I said, from a throughput standpoint, we're actually getting our projected numbers with just 2 out of the 3 expeditions. So really successful there. But one of the big lessons learned was we have to really evaluate how people are going to use the different bridges. Even though we started off everyone low and slow and helped everyone build up their courage to get to the last set of bridges, those tightrope walks at the end back up a lot more. So what we should have probably done is we probably should have done 3 of those tightrope walks. Even though we had always done sort of an advanced, intermediate, and novice lane, we probably should have done 2 advanced lanes, because either people went slower or everybody had built up so much courage by the time they got there that everybody wanted to do the advanced lanes. So some areas back up more than others, but that was the main one. But overall, definitely faster than we anticipated.
Yeah, and certainly it's different by different age groups. So what I saw was that the little kids were obviously very slow in some of the more challenging, but they were really wanting to do it, right? They really wanted to prove that they could do the advanced one, and sometimes that was a backup.
And one other thing that we noticed a lot too was, especially in the waterfall traverse canyon, sometimes people freeze out because it's really over the top, but it's really nice. A lot of the time, people's friends will backtrack and help them finish up the crossing. So really fun to watch.
Yeah, Ron Miziker Entertainment. How much of a visual intrusion are the carriage beams?
Carriage beams.
Beams overhead that you hook your
Oh,
harness to.
so I wouldn't say that they're a huge visual intrusion. The good news is they're, for the most part, parallel to your path of travel, so you can always look up between the sets of rails. We did every single thing on this whole attraction is themed, down to even the connection details that were modern connection details. We added epoxy and theme paint to make them look like 1920s connections with like rivets and through bolts. So even though they are a little bit of a visual intrusion, but generally we tried to design it so you could still look up and see everything up above you. One thing we did do is in key hero bridges where we could get close to the rockwork, we got rid of the big I-beam, and we actually we had these hangers that went from the track to the backbone that supported the track, and we would actually take those directly back into the rockwork, and we sort of made it look like they were staked into crevices in the rock. So the main structural steel is hidden back in the rockwork behind you, and the rails kind of set back, because on those traverse ledges, kind of the way it works is the rockwork's tilted back here, and we hold the rail back a little bit. So there's actually nothing above you in those cases. So it kind of varies depending on the case.
I'll also add that the lanyard that was the the connection to the overhead track, you could walk and not even worry about it, and it would really follow you. So you didn't really, the guest doesn't really have to think about that too much.
Staying on that topic, what happens when people fall? And how do you get them back onto the rope or things? I mean, are people falling on purpose to see what happens? Are you discovering anything like that?
So the lanyard is adjustable in length. So part of the operations, one of the slides I had was there's a large number of operations. So they have to put the harness on, they have to put the lanyard on, and then they adjust the length of the lanyard to make sure that you don't fall more than a foot or a foot and a half. So most able guests, if they fall, and some of these, of course, are designed to fall, right? The water is going to be a little slippery, and the tightrope, perhaps they fall, but they only fall a foot, and they can usually pull themselves back up. We, of course, had to design for the unusual, hopefully never happen case where somebody passes out in the middle of a course, right? So we, of course, have procedures on how to evac them.
Hi, I'm Akshay. I'm a next-gen member. I was wondering, you mentioned that you've never done a rope course before. So what prompted you to do a rope course in the Shanghai Disneyland, and how much did the culture influence the design of the entire attraction?
Good question. Well, we looked at when the discussion of doing a ropes course came up. One of the things we looked at is, we knew the aspirational thing we would want to deliver on is the whole aspect of mountain climbing and going on these expeditions. And fun fact, in China, they actually have a very famous hike. It's known as the most dangerous hike in the world. And which is very popular. It's a big tourist attraction. There's other things like that in China as well. So we thought that there was enough context in China where we thought that that would still be a meaningful thing to do. And we even have actually in the queue, there's a newspaper article where the League of Adventurers have made the world's most dangerous hike the safest. And it shows a picture of them with their fixed rope traverse system rigged up above the world's most dangerous hike. So it was one of our authentically Disney, distinctly Chinese nods that we snuck into the queue.
So I'll answer it on the operations side. So there's 39 operators. You have to pay for those operators. Labor rate is much cheaper in China. It is much difficult. There are obviously ropes course in the US, right? But the labor rate is a deciding factor. And part of the reason that, there's certainly the creative side, I'm talking from the operations side, that there's a decision because of we can do it in China because of the labor rate is low enough and it still makes sense.
Hello. What were some of the lessons learned on scenic integration in this venue? I know there's a ton of complex scenic integration with the ropes course system. So what were some of your lessons from that?
So that goes all the way back to design, and I think some of it's in the field too. But we had kind of a lean and mean team on this. And what we did at the very beginning of this was we started to look at different types of bridges we could do and what they might look like thematically. And we had hundreds of different ideas for bridges. And we got with kind of our core team was we had someone from ride, someone from operations, and someone from our maintenance team. And we all got together and we just said, okay, what are all the things that we have to design to? What are all the requirements? And then we started to go back and look at all of the bridges that we came up with and kind of picked out some of our favorite ones that we thought we actually could pull off. And some of them we made compromises and we kind of fudged the design. But basically what we did is we found out all the things we had to design to, and then we just designed to it. And we all just we teamed up really well together and made sure we could pull off all the things we wanted to do from a thematic standpoint. In the field, we had a variety of different vendors that helped with the cladding process, but we had very detailed show set packages, and we had a really great production designer on site that we worked very closely with to execute all the theming, and our whole theme paint team was top notch and really great. So design was the first hard part. Field was the second hard part, but short story is just a lot of really great collaboration and teamwork with all the different disciplines.
Hi, my name is Triet, and I'm a TA Next Gen member at USC. I just have a quick question about the amount of communication you had to communicate with the Roaring Rapids team, because you guys are both sharing the same mountain structure. So I'm just wondering.
Well, certainly that BIM tool that I talked about earlier was critical in installing the structural steel, building the mountain, putting the waterfall in. We had the ropes course going in right next to rapids. So excuse me. So there's a lot of coordination, a lot of interfaces. If you look at it at a high level, we're on different sides of the mountain, so we could install and test at the same time. So there wasn't a huge problem there. But as far as installation of the structural steel in the mountain, huge coordination effort.
Time for one more question.
Yeah, I'm Richard Murphy. I'm just wondering if there's any part of the expeditions and the trails where people are doing crazy stuff you didn't expect.
So one of the interesting things about doing something like a ropes course, when we put guests in that type of a situation, which is probably statistically they're safer than walking. So we're putting guests in very, very, very safe situation. But when a guest has sort of the mental perception that it feels dangerous, even though it's clearly not, they act very. They're very aware of their surroundings, and they don't do the crazy things you would expect them to do. They very much figure out how to get across the bridge and act as you would expect them to act in that type of situation. So generally, not a lot of rowdy or crazy guest behavior. I think when guests are in that type of situation, I think they're very just aware of their surroundings and very careful.
All right, huge. I know I shocked you, didn't you? Huge round of applause for Camp Discovery. Woo!
Thank you.
So much.
Thank you.